Hello, this is an assessment of a Bluthner style 8-gram piano. It's 190 centimetres long, made in 1907, and it's Sheraton style cabinet. Bechstein is very common for this age, 1907 Sheraton style, or from 1902 I think, but Bluthner not very common. So Sheraton style is this typical leg style on Sheraton, and this is a boxwood inlay I think. So it's very pretty piano. It has faded on the other side, but very pleasing casework, and I don't think it needs repolishing entirely, although of course it would be wonderful to repolish the whole casework, but if you want it to look reasonably smart, then I think it's just the right hand side. We're just about to come on. Sorry, the light in this room is really tricky. If you come on to the other side there, you can see that that is much lighter, and maybe that side could just be improved, matching in with the rest. It's going to be difficult, but without fully repolishing the whole piano. The top lid, that's good on this part here. You can see there is a serious patch there, so maybe repolishing might be the answer if you're interested in the piano. The veneer is excellent, and the beading is really pretty as well. And I don't think I've seen this style of music desk either. If you're in the trade and have seen, it'd be interesting to know. These pull forwards, I just wanted to show you this, giving the opportunity, so you can put candlesticks on here, and that slides back in like the one on the other side. Now the piano has had new key tops on, and a colleague who let me know about this piano tuner, wasn't sure whether they were ivory or ivory lookalike, because the grain is very similar on them all, but you do feel like ivory, and I think I've seen ivory like this before. So it's replacement one piece. In other words, there's no line going here which would indicate that it was original. So replacement ivory in the 1970s, I think, from what I've been talking to the clients about the time. It was bought from Hickey's in Reading. So Hickey's in Reading, there's some restoration done, and maybe didn't do all the restoration on it. The client didn't want it, apparently, didn't want all the restoration done. They're not quite sure about that, so that's trying to find out as much as we can about the piano, obviously. Our piano has been restrung. You can see, if you're used to seeing original Bluthner strings, they're much more coned than that. And I've got other videos if you want to see some original Bluthner strings. But here, the tuning pins are slightly on the loose side, and the hammers have also moved around. And I think the piano has been dried out at some stage, and it's not dry at the moment in this house. It's quite cool, so and not too dry. So it may dried out and then perhaps got moisture back in, and the tuning pins are slightly loose. So if we listen to this one, you can hear it slightly out of tune, the left hand string. I'm going to try setting that and see what difference it makes. So setting the pins, is, as we've mentioned before, is just a matter of tapping the pin in a bit to roughen the wood, not pushing it right in, but just roughening the wood, and that tightens it. On Bluthner's works very well usually, so you should see the coil being very slightly further in when it's set. So you hold it tight with a pin setter like this, and then hit it on the head, and as I say, not to push it right in, just to roughen up the wood. So now it's in tune, and you won't see much difference. The coil just taps slightly in, so as I say, not all the way, and that seems to have worked, although it's not really as tight as I'd like it to be, but it's tight enough to hold, as long as the atmosphere doesn't vary too much. Now what really needs to happen is that the rest plank, that's the wood that the tuning pins go into, needs replacing. And you can tell this was original because it's black here. Bluthner's always painted it black. Of course, a restorer might paint it black as well, but normally the restorers leave that not black. Then you can tell it's been changed, and you can see the delignate layers. We've just got one into stock actually, Bluthner, which had a new rest plank, and you can see the layers, multi-layered delignate rest plank. And that's ideal because that really does suit modern central heating, and in fact they put it in lots of new pianos as well. Now I've just pulled the action out of the piano. I wanted to show you this because when they restored the piano, they took the serial number off the top of the piano, but you can see at the back here, if you can focus it, you can see the serial number on the piano, so you can identify it as 1907 from that number. Bechstein's also, they have the number often taken off the top, but in the case of Bechstein, it's written underneath the piano. So if you've lost your number on the top, look at the one underneath, which is unfortunately not the serial number on a Bechstein. Sorry, I'm getting distracted from this piano. It's not, sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned anything about that because it's distracting too much, but you can see the hammers here have moved sideways, so they're not really lined up properly, and that means the hammers sound very different. They're very, very flat, so I don't think refacing's good enough for this because they're also a bit soft. So replacing the hammers is clearly something which would really help this piano. I think they're original hammers, they certainly look like it, and if that's a typical green underfelt for original Bluthner hammers. So they've moved over. Now when the piano dries out, it loosens off at the screw and it moves around, and then it moves sideways, and then when it gets more moisture in again, it's rock solid at that point. You can get tools to adjust these from the front here. You don't need to undo the screw, although tightening the screw is obviously necessary. On Bluthners it's quite common for this to happen because the wood is not so rough here as it is on a lot of pianos, and there's no little pin here to hold it like there is on Bechsteins. So they do tend to move around. It's quite a common problem that happens on Bluthners. So if you've got a Bluthner, you could check your piano, see if all the hammers are lined up properly. Clearly these need spacing, and well, we need replacing, I think. That's what we'd like to do to the piano. So it's a good piano, but you can see there's quite a lot of work that does need doing. I'm pleased to say the piano has no moth, and these Rentokil strips have done a great job in deterring it as well. They were all over the piano when I arrived. So this is a fine instrument, but for me to take it on to restore it and then resell it's really difficult, because replacing the hammers is costly, as you can imagine, and replacing the rest plank, you take the whole piano apart and then restring it. So the touch weight isn't too bad. I always check that, but if the hammers are replaced, obviously we'd have to redo the touch weight anyway. So one thing I forgot to mention, it's got very good leg room, although it slopes. I'll show you what I mean by that. So if you're a tall person, you'll be pleased to see there's a lot of legroom here, but in fact it slopes down in. I don't know if you can catch it on here. So the legroom measured to here is good, 63 centimetres, but it goes down to about normal, which is 60 for a grand down there, or 61. So that's a Bluthner Grand Piano Style 8, which means it's aliquot scaling, and it's 190 centimetres long, made in 1907. And there's not many Sheraton style Bluthner grand pianos compared to Bechstein, they're quite common. Bechstein, or for Bechsteins they're common. The 1907 Bechstein Sheraton style will be relatively common, but very few Bluthners. And it's a very pretty piano. It's faded and really needs livening up too. Repolishing perhaps not really, because it looks good generally, but just the fading, it might be difficult to match it in, and the top lid's got some problems as well. In terms of the piano itself, it's quite out of tune and flat A435, so, and I think it's dried out and then it's absorbed moisture again. So technically speaking then, I would say we'd have to replace the rest plank if we were going to sell the piano, certainly. If you buy the piano and don't replace the rest plank, you could set the pins, and as long as the environment wasn't too dry, it should be fine for many years. The other thing that needs to happen is the hammers need replacing, because they're very varied, as you can hear, and really quite soggy sounding, I call it, where really they need to be harder hammers and then voiced, and then with a beautiful tone it will have. It's the hammers are the really important thing for the tone on this piano, because the strings are quite good sounding. It's quite a good tone for the strings. So I think it's just the hammers mainly that need doing. But if we restrung the piano, though, we put top quality strings on as well. If you're interested in the piano and you'd like to find out a bit more about it, please do write to info@robertspianos.com. Thank you very much for listening.